While researching today's video, I realized that Johnny Cage is one of the coolest characters in Mortal Kombat. And no, I'm not saying that because he wears sunglasses. I'm talking about his warrior spirit. I'm not joking, this guy does some crazy stuff that I bet most of you don't even know about. Like bringing himself back to life with sheer willpower. Yeah, he does that at one point. Get this man a Green Lantern ring. Most fans think Johnny is just funny. He's comedic relief. But no, this man is actually very heroic. Despite being a famous actor with millions of dollars, Johnny Cage always chooses to fight for us. Can you say that about most rich people? Hell no. So yeah, Johnny Cage is a real one. And after watching today's video, you're gonna love him too. Let's all leave a like down below for Johnny Cage, easily one of the best Mortal Kombat characters. And if today's video gets 2,000 likes, I'll buy $500 sunglasses in his honor and wear them during the next video. Without further ado, let's begin. Real quick, I have a recent video of every Mortal Kombat character versus Onaga, and it's a great watch, so I definitely recommend checking it out after today's video. But alright, on to Johnny Cage, beginning with the very first Mortal Kombat game. And despite being a movie star, Johnny Cage is kind of a side character in this first game, but that's okay, because his motivation is still pretty interesting. Johnny Cage is a martial artist turned action star, but due to Hollywood magic and other factors, many believe that Johnny Cage's fights are just movie magic, and that Johnny himself can't actually fight. And Johnny Cage hates this because he was a good fighter before becoming a movie star. So he enters this Mortal Kombat tournament to prove that he's a legit fighter. He wants to win the whole thing. However, he's got no idea how supernatural the whole thing is, and that there's monsters and other crazy stuff like that. And the game itself is not clear about who Johnny actually fights throughout the tournament, but later on he does help Sonya and Kano fight Goro. But after Liu Kang wins the tournament, the island starts to crumble and Sonya Blade gets captured along with Kano, but Johnny Cage actually escapes through a portal, which I think Raiden made, but the game's not super clear. The point is Johnny Cage escapes and actually makes a Hollywood movie based on his experience and names it Mortal Kombat, which is very funny, but unfortunately many thought it was just a fictional story and didn't understand that Johnny was basing this on his real experiences, which means that Johnny Cage was still not taken seriously as a fighter, despite surviving a life and death tournament with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. Next up is Mortal Kombat 2, where Johnny Cage unfortunately does the least. It's essentially a repeat of the first Mortal Kombat game. He enters the tournament, does some stuff, fights some people, and yeah, that's basically it. He makes another movie based on his experiences that's also super successful, and he names it Mortal Kombat 2. That's what mainly happens with Johnny Cage in this game. However, according to History Behind the Warrior, Johnny Cage is actually why Jax joins the tournament, because he informs Jax what happened to Sonya Blade. She was captured during the first tournament. And of course, Jax doesn't believe all the supernatural aspects of the story, but still, he's gonna investigate because Sonya Blade is missing and something's gotta be done. He's her commanding officer and he's gonna save her, so that's why he enters the second Mortal Kombat tournament. Or in other words, Johnny Cage is why Jax shows up at all, so that's kinda neat. But even so, I would say that Johnny is still a side character in Mortal Kombat 2. But all that's about to change because Mortal Kombat 3 and the sequels are when Johnny Cage really becomes amazing. And I'm not joking everyone, I could tear up just thinking about it. Johnny Cage goes full hero in these games. During Mortal Kombat 3, Shao Kahn straight up invades Earthrealm, bypassing the rules of Mortal Kombat using Sindel as a loophole. And he's hell-bent on winning this time, so he orders Shang Tsung to make a sort of hit squad. I think they're called an extermination squad in the game. And their main goal is to kill Liu Kang, Sonya, the main Earthrealmers who pose a threat from previous tournaments. And unfortunately, they succeed in killing Johnny Cage because Motaro is their leader and he's very strong. Too strong for Johnny Cage in fact, and so he dies. But Underdog, you said these games were Johnny Cage's cool moment. Oh yeah, they are, keep listening. Get this, because the realms are in flux during Shao Kahn's invasion, Johnny Cage's soul isn't able to pass on, it's just stuck there in Earthrealm. And in that moment, Johnny Cage decides, I'm not gonna sit this one out, I'm getting back in my dying body and fighting as best I can. Which is exactly what he does. This man rejoins the other Earthrealmers and says, yeah, I died, but I'm gonna keep fighting as best I can. Raiden informs him that if they win, Johnny Cage's soul will pass on because the realms will no longer be in shambles. And guess what? Johnny Cage Cage doesn't care. He wants to save the day anyway. It's about Earth. Saving the day is all Johnny cares about, even though it means his doom. And this rallies the other fighters to battle even harder than they were. Johnny Cage is the shining light of this game. It's so cool. And after winning the day, Raiden was right. Johnny's soul passes on to heaven, and that's it. Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 3 is the definition of a hero. He gives his life multiple times to save the day, and that's so cool. So it's time for Mortal Kombat 4, where Johnny Cage is somehow just back. Yeah, he's fully playable, which had people confused at the time, because Mortal Kombat 4 doesn't actually explain why Johnny Cage is alive. But thankfully, Mortal Kombat Gold does, which is essentially an expansion of MK4 on home consoles. And it turns out that Heaven can see all the different realms and whatnot, and while up there, Johnny Cage sees that Shinnok is going to invade Earthrealm, and he warns Raiden, like, yo, I want back in the game. I'm not gonna sit by and let this guy destroy Earth after I worked so hard to save it. And the Elder Gods allow it to happen, but there's one condition. Johnny Cage is only revived while saving the day. After that, it's back to Heaven. And as always, Johnny Cage is completely okay with that. He joins the fight once again. After joining forces with the other heroes, the day is saved. Shinnok is defeated, happy ending, right? And while it's unclear how big a role Johnny Cage played after getting revived, I think the fact he saw Shinnok invading and warned Raiden, all that stuff, qualifies him for big impact here. And also, there's one more cool thing I forgot to mention. Because they do save the day, and Johnny Cage is one big reason why, the Elder Gods let him stay on Earth and live out his life as a human. How cool is that? I bet many of you watching had no clue about this, because Johnny's ending in MK4 is so goofy and silly. Time for Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Johnny Cage is still making movies like always, but he misses being a hero. He wants to save the day. He wants to matter. Like mentioned earlier, Johnny Cage has this warrior spirit. If he's not fighting on Earthrealm's behalf, if he's not helping save the day, he feels unfulfilled, which is honestly just great character growth. He went from a selfish Hollywood actor who just wanted to prove his worth to a self-sacrificing hero ready to lay his life on the line any chance he gets. And unfortunately, he does that in Deadly Alliance. He dies, along with every other good guy in the game for the most part, except for Sub-Zero because he was late. Yeah, you hate to see it. Johnny Cage dies, but of course gets brought back. This time, it's not his willpower though. And before I get too ahead of myself, Deadly Alliance Johnny Cage is going in the dies tier, because that's pretty much all he does. The game doesn't go into detail about anything else with him. Next up is Mortal Kombat Deception, where Johnny Cage is not playable, but technically is revived by Onaga and made into his slave. Along with pretty much every other character that died in Deadly Alliance. They work for Onaga in Deception. But thankfully, they're not mind controlled for too long, because Ermac, with the help of Liu Kang and also Sindel, helped to free everyone from Onaga's control. Which means Johnny Cage is back! Let's go! He's alive for Armageddon. But real quick, we have to rank him. In Deception, Johnny Cage is going in the does nothing tier, I guess? But next up is Armageddon, and I'm excited because Johnny Cage does some pretty big stuff in this game. And it's gonna be eye-opening for many of you watching who thought that Johnny Cage wasn't cool until Mortal Kombat X. No. In this game, Johnny Cage goes into full hero mode. He assembles everyone to join the forces of light. That's right, Johnny Cage is the main reason all the good guys assemble together and fight against the forces of evil. Yeah, and already that's pretty cool. Johnny Cage has become this beacon of light in Armageddon. But don't worry, things get even cooler because Johnny Cage ambushes Shinnok and forces him to retreat. That's right, the fallen Elder God has to run away from Johnny Cage after getting ambushed. And to be fair, he's surrounded by the forces of light, and it could be implied that all of them just overwhelmed Shinnok's forces. That's definitely a possibility, but I like to imagine that Johnny just whoops Shinnok's butt, because we see that in Mortal Kombat X, and a lot of people assumed it was plot armor, but no, Johnny Cage has had Shinnok's number before, because it gets stated directly that Shinnok runs away from Johnny Cage in Armageddon. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I would say that Johnny Cage in Armageddon goes in big impact here. So next up, let's talk about Shaolin Monks, because I just realized I forgot about that game. It summarizes the main events of the first 3 games with some subtle changes here and there. So Johnny Cage takes part in the first tournament and also points Liu Kang and Kung Lao in the right direction for later missions, and then randomly later on he kills Goro, but Liu Kang and Kung Lao did most of the work. Johnny Cage just did the fatality. And also he gets captured by Shang Tsung at some point. So I guess you could argue that Johnny Cage is active in Shaolin Monks and not a side character, because he does kill Goro. Next up, we have Mortal Kombat vs. DC. Just kidding, Johnny Cage is missing in this game. Apparently during the realm merger he just got lost. And I don't mean he was confused and couldn't find his way, I mean he got stuck in a pocket dimension or something something like that. So alright, time for the Netherrealm era. Mortal Kombat 9, Johnny Cage is kind of a side character. He does some funny stuff, but also saves Sonya Blade from Kano, which is neat, but after that, when you're no longer playing as him, Johnny does pretty much nothing, which means he's going in the side character tier. Next up is Mortal Kombat X, where Johnny Cage is pretty much the main character for the first chapter. He fights off the invasion from Shinnok along with Sonya Blade's help, and then later on fights off Shinnok. He does not technically defeat him because Shinnok gets back to his feet, but the boy is limping, alright? Man is slumped and gassed. So if you ask me, Johnny Cage could have gone the distance and defeated Shinnok. But before that happens, Raiden uses the amulet to imprison Shinnok forever until he gets released later on. However, before that happens, Johnny Cage and Sonya have a baby named Cassie Cage, who grows up and later on defeats Shinnok again. So that's kind of Johnny Cage's W too, a little bit, which is why Johnny Cage is going in the big impact tier. Next up is Mortal Kombat 11, where Johnny Cage does do a lot of stuff, but none of it is anything too major, I suppose. He does almost succeed in saving the day for everybody, but then Sonya gets captured and young Johnny gets captured off screen. Main Johnny Cage, who's older, gets shot in the knee, and that's pretty much it for him in the story. He doesn't do much in Aftermath either. So yeah, in Mortal Kombat 11, Johnny Cage is going in the side character tier, or maybe in the active tier, I suppose. So now finally, it's time for Mortal Kombat 1, where Johnny Cage hits a lot of the same beats as the early era Johnny Cage. However, he's in major debt and apparently about to lose the house or something. But outside that small change, it's classic Johnny Cage. He wants to prove himself. Yes, he's an actor, but also a premier martial artist, and he proves that at several points in the game, even tagging along with the heroes on some important missions. But overall, I don't think Johnny Cage does too much in this game. He's either a side character or just active. He does do a lot of stuff, but even when you're playing as him, he doesn't do any main character stuff really. And alright everyone, there you have it. As you can see, Johnny Cage is actually pretty heroic at times and does have this warrior spirit. Despite being the funny guy and providing comedic relief in the story, he's a genuine hero who never hesitates to jump in and put his life on the line, which I find so cool. When you take a deeper look into Johnny Cage's story, he really is one of the coolest characters in all of Mortal Kombat. So thanks for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below. It helps my videos out a ton. To anybody watching who's new to this channel, finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.